Good afternoon, parents, family members, friends, and distinguished guests. It is my distinct honor and great joy to present you the Masters of Business Administration graduating class of 2025 from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. It is now my honor to present the Dean, distinguished faculty, dedicated administrators, esteemed alumni, and the class leadership of the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania.
You may be seated. Good afternoon, graduates. It is so wonderful to be here today to celebrate the Wharton MBA class of 2025. As we come together to celebrate your individual and collective successes, we also recognize this as a pivotal moment in your educational and professional journeys. But before we do any of that, let's not overlook the fact that many of you are sitting here today because of the unwavering support of a multitude of people, many of whom join us today to celebrate you. So without further ado, let me welcome our guests. Welcome to the parents, partners, families, friends, and loved ones who have traveled to Philadelphia to share in the joy of this important achievement. Please give them a round of applause. Welcome also to the many dedicated Wharton faculty and staff who are here today in support of these tremendous students. Please join me in welcoming my colleagues. And lastly, A huge welcome to each and every one of you, the Wharton MBA class of 2025. Commencement is a time to reflect on what you've accomplished during your time at Wharton and to look ahead to all that you are poised to achieve. At some schools, the beginning of one's academic journey marks a time for the dean to say, look to your left and look to your right. In 2 years, one of you will not be here. Well, that's not how we roll at Wharton. Once you are a part of the Wharton community, we expect you to succeed. And wow, have you ever, in large part because of your hard work and significant sacrifice. Knowing your ambitious natures, you may be tempted to hit fast forward on this moment in an effort to reach the next challenge and the inevitable string of accomplishments that await you. But I encourage you to settle in this moment just for a little while and let everything it signifies sink in. As beautiful as this all may be, my role today is not to try to convince you that the road ahead is going to be an easy one. In fact, the road you just traversed was no piece of cake. As a result, you no doubt understand all too well that you are graduating into a world marked by profound challenges and unprecedented uncertainty. And sidebar, if you had unprecedented uncertainty on your graduation speech bingo card, feel free to go ahead and check that one off now. But in all seriousness, I know that instability can be incredibly unsettling for us all. And I cannot perfectly predict what will happen in the financial and job markets over the months and years to come. No one can. But what I can predict is that whatever challenge awaits you, you are infinitely more prepared for what lies ahead than you probably know. How can I know that, you ask? Well, let's start by stating the obvious. You have just attained the most robust, most relevant, and most rigorous business education available anywhere in the world. You mastered how to think analytically, how to apply data-informed insights to problems, and how to thoughtfully consider the perspectives of classmates, professors, friends, and foils into your thinking to produce a holistic view of complex issues. And you did all of this while navigating an onslaught of global instability and a climate of heightened divisiveness. Yes, you have definitely learned a great many things to serve you well during your times of uncertainty. But I'd like to focus on two critical skills you've also developed that should form the foundation necessary for you to navigate ambiguity with confidence. First, you've learned how to recognize. You've just spent 2 years consuming and synthesizing a dizzying amount of information. You are the information generation for good reason, and your ability to sort through and make sense of massive amounts of data is guaranteed to carry you far. But we also know there are downsides to cognitive overload and constant connectivity. There's a concept from the field of psychology that is highly relevant to the moment we find ourselves in today. It's called learned helplessness, and it was an idea discovered right here at the University of Pennsylvania by Dr. Martin Seligman, who now leads Penn's Positive Psychology Center. Learned helplessness occurs when an individual continuously faces a negative, uncontrollable situation and stops even trying to change their circumstances, even when they have the ability to do so. Sound familiar? Well, if not, think of that friend or family member who tried to get fit by starting a new exercise routine, then convinced themselves that nothing's going to work for me when they didn't see the results. This mindset tells us that nothing within our power can change our bad circumstances, so why even bother? In a world with grand challenges and seemingly insurmountable problems, it's easy to succumb to helplessness, learned or otherwise. But not for you all, because that is not the Wharton way. Ask yourselves, what has ensured that generations of Wharton alumni become successful leaders, change makers, and entrepreneurs? It's not that they simply reacted to their circumstances or let others steer their course. Rather, it's because they choose to recognize their own possibilities in a sea of perplexity. You also have a choice to take agency over your attitude and actions. As you will undoubtedly face new and surprising hurdles in life, I implore you not to allow yourself to become paralyzed by the chaos happening around you. Instead, lean on your experience in recognizing the potential that others often overlook. This doesn't mean only taking big bets or swinging for the fences, but it does mean continually challenging yourself to find opportunity in this ocean of noise and consistently, methodically, and intentionally draw your strengths as you drive forward. Equally important to knowing how to recognize, Wharton graduates learn how to reflect. Reflection is a powerful leadership skill, which is why it's startling to learn it's one of the most underutilized skills. As someone who has studied how organizations and leaders respond to crises, I can attest that you would be ill-prepared for future challenges if you do not first learn the lessons that experience is offering to teach. This means constantly analyzing successes and failures, both yours and others, in order to ask difficult questions and embrace sometimes more difficult answers. Wharton students are no strangers to soliciting and giving feedback. Remember, it is a gift. You are well practiced in this process that, when done right, enables clarity and growth for all involved. As you strike out on this next journey, and at every juncture where you're considering taking on a new opportunity, I encourage you to go beyond just passively listening to feedback. Dig deeper and find a way to really digest it, and then be open to putting those learnings into practice. I promise it will enable you to see the bigger picture, making you a more well-rounded teammate and a more impactful leader. Taken together, the skills of recognizing and reflecting have contributed something else to your repertoire. They helped to make you resilient. Over the course of my career, I've spent a lot of time speaking with leaders about how they navigated volatile environments. And one thing I found is that the most successful leaders share a common trait. They are resilient in the face of adversity. They don't hunker down and wait for challenging periods to pass so they can just get back to normal. They actively mobilize their networks and knowledge and resources to make strategic, positive adjustments amid their crucible moment. Resilience requires adaptability, and in that regard, the class of 2025 is more than prepared. Over the last 2 years, you've spent time shifting between quant-heavy and values-based subjects. You've juggled roles in team-based exercises and real-world simulations, and you've balanced coursework with co-curricular leadership, internships, and your own business ventures. This mental agility represents an invaluable mark of a truly resilient leader, and it can no doubt be found in each and every one of you. The world you're stepping into is hungry for leaders who recognize not just problems, but possibilities, who can build models and build trust, who can take decisive action, but also pause to reflect. and who are willing to navigate every twist and turn with open eyes and a forward-thinking mindset. You are those leaders. And as you leave Wharton, I encourage you to look for opportunity where others see obstacles. I challenge you to seek out new perspectives and continuously expand your capacity to learn. And I implore you to never lose sight of your ability to forge ahead even when the chips are down. So on behalf of the entire Wharton School, congratulations to the class of 2025. And now, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce your graduation day speaker, Nikolai Tangen. Nikolai is the CEO of Norges Bank Investment Management, the largest sovereign wealth fund in the world. Previously, he founded and served as CEO and Chief Investment Officer of AKO Capital, and he established the AKO Foundation to support initiatives that advance education, the arts, and the environment. Nikolai is a longtime and steadfast supporter of Wharton and Penn, where he has provided generous support for international students as well as entrepreneurship and innovation opportunities on our campus. His impact at Penn is embodied in Tangen Hall, which serves as the physical Start Here button for aspiring entrepreneurs, creators, and innovators. Nikolai's educational background combines business and the humanities. He earned a bachelor's in finance from Wharton and a master's degree in art history and social psychology. Nikolai is a proud lifelong learner and completed Russian language studies at the Norwegian Armed Forces School of Intelligence and Security. He explores leadership principles and corporate strategy with CEOs of the world's largest companies in his podcast, In Good Company. Please join me in welcoming your speaker, Wharton alumnus Nikolai Tangen.
Dear Wharton class of 2025, I have one good and one bad piece of you today. Let me start with a good one. You are about to graduate from the very best MBA program in the world. Congratulations. Now, let me move on to the bad part. As you leave campus today to enter the real world, many of you will think that you are God's gift to business. And I know that because that's exactly what I thought when I left this place 33 years ago. I had my Wharton degree in one hand and my ego in the other. And let me tell you, my ego was the heavier part. So take this advice from one who learned it the hard way. You are probably not God's gift to business. But you can become one. And I'm going to share with you one superpower that you will need in business and in life. And that superpower is talk to people. Now, you expected something fancier, didn't you? Something along the lines of work smarter, not harder, or dare to fail. You have been a student at the best business school in the world, and the best piece of advice you got was talk to people. And yes, it is. Because talking to people, all types of people, left, right, center, up and down, both the ones you agree with and disagree with, That is a superpower. Why? Because most people don't do it. What I talk about is real straight talk. The kind where you can see someone's facial micro expressions when you ask a tough question, or when you say something nice from the bottom of your heart and you see the tears in their eyes. That's where the magic happens. That's where we figure out who we are. That's where we understand how the world really works. Now, think about an important moment in your life. I bet it wasn't on TikTok or Instagram. I bet it wasn't in a Zoom meeting either. I had such a moment shortly after I graduated from Wharton. After 6 months in my first job, I thought I was doing really great. I mean, I was making plans how to spend the big bonus I expected to get. Then my boss took me aside for some feedback. The two of us down in the basement of a wine bar in London. Because in London, feedback sessions take place in dark, gloomy wine bars. So we sat down, and my boss took out a stack of papers, which by the height of it resembled a novel. But it wasn't a novel. And it wasn't my bonus or pay increase either. It was a list of all my mistakes and what I needed to improve. It was a reality check, given face to face. I was basically utterly useless. That conversation changed my life. I learned I wasn't God's gift to anything. I learned I needed to step up my game. And I realized that I was not conscious of my surroundings. I was obsessed with myself and my own ego. That is when I started to really have conversations with other people. More people. All sorts of people. Not only CEOs, but also taxi drivers, people next to me on the plane or at a party. And since I'm from the Nordics, I even have conversations with naked Finns next to me in the sauna. And I tell you, in Finland, naked people, they are really naked. The best CEOs talk to everyone in their organizations, from board members and top managers to support teams and interns. The CEO of Ferrari had conversations with 300 employees when he took on the job. At Adidas, the top leader gave out his cell phone number to 60,000 people. Every single person working in the company. Why? Because they want to listen to what people have to say and get perspectives from everyone, not just the ones who make it into their meeting calendar. So when I started in my current role, I had 140 in-depth conversations before my first day in the office. I wanted to get to know people, and they wanted to get to know me. And these conversations provided great insights that made my first decisions better. Talking to so many people from all over the organization gave me a pretty good idea of what I should prioritize. And since people felt that they had been heard, it turned out to be easier to drive change. But as CEO, it's hard to make sure that you meet people from all levels of your organization. So instead, I make them come to me. And I have this secret weapon that makes people come to my office all the time. Because just outside my office, I have a freezer. I have a freezer full of ice cream. And whenever someone wants an ice cream, I get a chance to talk to them. So the annual budget for ice cream where I work is larger than in most companies. But it is very profitable. I probably get it back 1 million times. A good conversation consists of 2 ingredients: speaking and listening. Now, I checked out your curriculum here at Wharton. I found courses on speaking, writing, but nothing on listening. Teach yourself the art of listening. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You should listen twice as much as you talk. In my professional career, I have first and foremost been a listener. And let me tell you, there is a lot more money in listening than in talking. Listening is a skill. And to become a good listener, you have to tame your own need for talking. And as you progress in your career, this becomes harder. Have you heard about the Hippo effect? It stands for the highest paid person's opinion. That goes for meetings as well. The highest paid person in a meeting talks the most. CEOs are basically addicted to the sound of themselves talking. I mean, just look at me today. So please do not forget to pay attention to the people around you. Listen carefully to what they have to say and ask questions instead of just talking yourself. When you meet new people, learn their names. Remember their favorite football team, or that time you discussed how to make the perfect spaghetti carbonara. Because next time you meet, they will be stunned that you remember. So when you leave campus today, remember to talk to those who cross your path in life. Listen to them, not just at work, but everywhere. It will give you new perspectives and deeper wisdom in business and in life. And please, when you get that first big bonus, don't spend it all on something fancy and expensive. Take someone you love out for dinner and have a great conversation. Class of 2025, congratulations. And now, go conquer the world. Thank you.
So one thing that I know about Nikolai is that he speaks the truth. He started as the head of the Nordis Investment Management Fund the same time that I started it as dean at Wharton, and he called me and he said he wanted to have a conversation and learn how he could be a better leader. And that is still a profound conversation that sticks with me today. So thank you for sharing that excellent advice with our students. So I'm very excited to introduce our next speaker, class of 2025 graduate, Lorenzo Garnell. Originally from Dallas, Lorenzo moved from the Texas heat to Boston winters to study applied math at Harvard, where he captained the track and field team. Here at Wharton, Lorenzo majored in management and served as a leadership fellow, admissions fellow, and vice president of prospective students for AMBA. In an attempt to revive his athletic career, he also co-captained the WHL hockey team and Wharton Club basketball team. After graduation, Lorenzo will return to BCG to continue his work in strategy consulting. And eventually, he plans to move into the sports investing space, aiming to expand access to education in underprivileged communities through sport. Please join me in welcoming Lorenzo to the stage.
Wow. Good afternoon, Dean James, our incredible faculty and staff, friends, family, and of course, my amazing classmates. Welcome and congratulations. First and foremost, I want to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for his guidance in this opportunity. I also want to take a second to thank the people who helped make this moment possible. I start with none other than my mom. My biggest supporter, my hero. Thank you for everything. It was in your lap, sounding out the words to Happy Birthday Cookie Monster, that I first felt like I'd unlocked the world. Thank you for the quiet sacrifices no one saw and the loud cheers everyone, and I mean everyone, heard. You showed me how to lead with love and how to live a life that's bigger than yourself. Today is possible because you and Dad showed up for me, and I know I'm not the only one. So to the rest of our families, friends, and mentors, thank you for your endless support and for nodding along when we tried to explain what a search fund is. You all stood by us even when we weren't entirely sure what we were doing here. And let's be honest, you probably weren't sure either. Because Wharton's a bit absurd. For instance, we kicked off this journey the way all great business leaders do, on a random golf course in Delaware. We traveled more than influencers without making a dime off of it. And we spent months stress recruiting for jobs we didn't even want. Yet somewhere in all of that, and classes of course, we learned something. No, it definitely wasn't how course match works. But we learned that Wharton is Wharton because of the people. And behind every black nameplate, there's a story. We learned from first-generation students carrying the weight of the dreams of those who came before them. We learned from the veterans among us who faced the unimaginable so others could choose their own path. Amen. Amen. And we learned from student founders who refused to wait for the future, choosing instead to build it themselves. You see, our stories became our superpower because they reminded us what truly matters. Our stories pushed us to turn purpose into action. We brought conferences to life, mentored the class behind us, led venture treks halfway across the world, and we fought. Some of us fought off sleep in those brutal 8:30 classes. Some of us fought quite literally in a ring, being cheered on by thousands of classmates in tuxedos and prom dresses. And some of us fought without an audience, pushing for what we believe in quiet rooms, through tough conversations, really pushing for a Wharton that reflects the world we want to lead someday. Now, today means something different to each of us, but whatever it means to you, I know it matters. For me, today is special because of my ancestors. My ancestors who were once enslaved. My ancestors whose suffering involuntarily contributed to the funding of the very university we graduate from today. My ancestors who never got the chance to walk these halls, but whose sacrifice, strength, and spirit are etched into every brick of this place we call home. So whatever makes today special for you, hold on to it because it brought you here, and that alone is worth celebrating. Y'all, standing here today, I feel grateful, inspired, and certain. Certain that what made these past 2 years extraordinary were the moments we chose to show up for one another. When someone lost a loved one, or tore an ACL, or when you had to give the same relationship advice to the same friend for the 5th time in a row, when real life cracked through the Wharton bubble and we held each other up. So class of 2025, I thank each of you for the memories, the stories you shared, and the way you showed up. Because that's where real happiness lives. Not in accolades or achievements, but in meaning. And I believe meaning comes from belonging. Belonging to one another, belonging to a purpose bigger than ourselves. So keep showing up. Be the person that you needed when you started. And carry with you the stories we've shared. The ones that reminded us we were never alone because we're not. You see, I believe in this class deeply because we've already proven that when we show up for one another, we're capable of something extraordinary. But knowing what you're capable of also means knowing what's at stake. Because the world doesn't just need leaders. It needs courageous ones, and it needs us now more than ever. So Wharton class of 2025, wherever life takes you, whether that's consulting, something entrepreneurial, or taking a breath to figure out what truly sets your soul on fire, just remember, we were never meant to do this alone. And whatever you choose to build, chase, or create, just make sure it's for something bigger than yourself. Thank you, and congratulations again to the Wharton MBA class of 2025.
Thank you for sharing your story, Lorenzo. I would now like to turn the mic over to Nikolai Siegelko, the David M. Knott Professor of Management, co-director of the Management Institute for Innovation Management, and Vice Dean of the MBA program at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. As you all know, Nikolai is an inspiring educator, an award-winning researcher, and a valued partner. Please join me in welcoming Nikolai Stigelko to the stage.
Congratulations, class of 2025. You've made it. I remember it was a mere 22 months ago that I welcomed you just across the road to the beginning of your Wharton journey. Now, I hope that we have accomplished our goal, that today you look at the world with different eyes. You see connections where you didn't see them before, and you have made some connections in this wonderful community. Now, since the Dean is looking forward to shaking the hands of 864 graduates, and I'm looking forward to handing out 864 certificates, so let me be relatively brief and focus on 3 topics. First, celebrate. Getting a Wharton MBA is a major achievement, and you certainly should be proud of yourself. Juggling academics with a job search while building a social and professional network is not an easy task. This clearly was a 2-year marathon, right? With many team meetings, midterms, finals, group projects, individual papers, late night studying, and you persevered. Now, as with many celebrations of a big completed task, there's probably both, right? The exhilaration of having finished it and a tinge of sadness that now it's over. There's a German saying of this feeling. It's with a laughing and a crying eye, mit einem lachenden und einem weinenden Auge. But if you feel a bit sad that it's now over, that's probably also a great sign that you apparently had a good time. Now, the second topic, and you have already heard this from other speakers, but let me just re-emphasize it: gratitude. Be grateful to all the people who made it possible for you to be here in this moment. This includes the obvious ones, many of which sit right now in the stands, right? Your parents, your partners, your friends, but of course your classmates sitting around you. But also think about your mentors, your co-workers, your elementary school and high school teachers, the people who guided you towards applying to Wharton, your professors, and many, many alumni who have come before you and who have supported the school over the years so that we can continue to be the best business school in the world. Let's be grateful. Yes, you worked hard and you persevered, but without all of them, you would not be here today. So please reach out to those who have helped you along the way and thank them. And my last topic, impact. Now, we have articulated, and here I quote, that the goal of the Wharton MBA program is to equip and enable our students to occupy influential positions in organizations as conscientious, globally aware, and effective leaders who create a significant impact in the world. So now that you have this great degree, now that you are part of this amazing alumni community, now that you have the tools from financial acumen to strategic thinking, you have also the responsibility to utilize your new powers to create a positive impact in this world. Students of mine know that I like to harp on the topic of value. My plea to you is that whenever you engage in an action in the future, ask yourself, does this action create value? Does it increase the size of the pie? Or does this action merely shift value, moving a slice of the pie from one pocket to another pocket? Please remember, your decisions will have ripple effects. They may affect your customers, your suppliers, your co-workers, and the communities in which you operate. Please think about value at the system level. So let me conclude with one of my favorite sayings. Success is when smart planning, hard work, and good luck meet opportunity. Wharton hopefully provided you with the tools to do the smart planning. I know that you all can work really hard. So all I'm left with is wishing you all the good luck to meet that opportunity, to go out there and to be successful and create a lot of value. All the best to you. It is now my great pleasure to welcome you as graduates of the Wharton MBA program. Thank you. So it's now my great pleasure to announce the Palmer Scholars for the class of 2025. So these students consistently performed at the highest level with an academic performance that placed them in the top 5% of the class. So please join me in congratulating these students on their outstanding achievement. I would like to ask each of the scholars to rise and remain standing when I call their names. Christy Baba, Joseph Barbati, Adam Michael Beaton, Jake Alex Becker, Kieran Burge Desai, Christopher McKim Bush, Chip Chambers, Kevin Keating Coakley, David Patterson Cohn, Paola Cuevas Baez, JJ Leon Del Rosario, Sachin Hiral Paresh Doshi, Andrew Jacobs Flax, Nisarg Gagrani, Derek Gibbs, Nikos Gatosis, Ari Goldstein, Krista Holland, Jacob Charles Josephak, Pranav Kumar, Elise Nicole Laird, Jonathan Lee, Melody Tammy Lynn, Robbie Raymond Lusardi, Connor Francis Mahoney, Redima Mishra, Matthew Mister, Ross Oli, Rushil Kamalesh Patel, Mansinital Patwa, Roy Pang, Woodson Banneker Powell, Martha Wanda Polnicki, Chloe Schoen, Delaney Nicole Sheets, Shrish Sunil Shenoy, Alec Grant Silverstein, Shrishti Sinha, Tyler Triscari, Will Todd Takfarber, Neha Shri Upadhyay, Nina Bentham, Ellison Way, Chris Wing, Ella Shui, Sid Yalagada, Josh Adam Zimmer, and Eduardo Martin Zulueta. Congratulations to our Palmer Scholars of the class of 2025. Thank you. You may be seated now again. Now, each year, academic departments and the second year class also recognize students who have excelled in the classroom and those who have made an impact on the community during their 2 years at Wharton. Now, I call your attention to the screens above as we honor the recipients of these awards for the class of 2025. Our student award winners, please stand up so we can recognize you for your accomplishments. Could you please stand up if you saw your name up there? Thank you. All right, dear MB class of 2025, the time has come for you to be recognized as graduates of the oldest and business school and the best business school in the world. Congratulations, and we'll come you up and give you your certificates. Thank you.
And so we begin. Lorenzo Daniel Jr. Tyler Jackson. Teresa Chelsea Hartano. Alice Christie DiPietro. Don Quay Lee Dow. Jacqueline Alexandra Keene. Natu McCarthy. Divanya Beerwith. Aaron Vaughn. Ziad Abdulal. Ifi Maros Aduranmu. Rajlakshmi Advant. Simran Ajuha. Jimmy Alade. Rehab Ali Raza. Oyindamola Aliyu. Narman Avimarova. Usman Beg. Jake Becker. Bailey Burt. Jamie Cabrera Baldwin. Isaac Kaner. Marcus Chang. Stephen Cheng Lai. Katrina Chuo. Samuel DeLise. Prutha Dubashi. Kavitha Achambadi. Gabrielle Escarad Bisbal. Jacob Feuerborn. Sydney Flynn. Charles Gay. Nikos Gotsas. Isabel Glass. Sumeda Goyle. Meredith Holmes. Selena Hu. Anita Itaman. Pruther Kale. Justin Kohler. Shoaib Kohli. Shelley Lau. Jessica Lin. Victoria Liu. Robert Raymond Lusardi II. Connor Mahoney. Thomas Meyer. Ida Mizani. Hanying Mo. Annika Mulaney. William Thomas Norwood. Anna Tolulape Ogundipe. Ross Oli. Christopher Peck. Molly Paradis. Anshuman Parikh. Cole Paulin. Nicolas Puran Latorre. Victor Louis Porcena. Robert Ragland. Gina Marie Ragone. Anvantika Ramesh. Sean Reesner. Talise Nicole Redmond. Aaron Schmidt. Hanid Siddiqui. Shrishti Sinha. Varun Srinivas Sridhanran. Steve Sarinsky. Annabelle Shurtis. Sanjana Teji. Tyler Triscari. Dan Varicchio. Sudatana Kate Watanavakan. Caitlin Williams. Sid Yarlagada. Alan Yin. Maxwell Yuti. Zichin Yuan. Elaine Yi-Min Zhang. Matthew Zimmer. Natalie Zer. Lee Pensoy. Andrew Acker. Shrega Agarwal. Mate Alamehu. Soastron Alves de Souza Neto. Guillermo Ernesta Amtman Aleman. Ian Anderson. Amanda Austie. Domenico Octavio Barbieri Giraldo. Youssef Bargash. Olga Belyanino. Sean Bhatnagar. Sam Bogrov. Alex Dean Booker Jr. Jennifer Bryan. Annabelle Hitchcock Buckfire. James Camalici. Amy Chu. Jada Banji Dingcher. Sachin Doshi. Eric Earl. Julia Feldstein. Andrew Fleischer. Aditya Vinay Goyal. Caroline Gold. Livy Grant. Zach Greenstein. Allison Elizabeth Hall. Kieran Choshki. Patrick James Hoffinger. Aaron Horn. Emma Shi. Cassie Huang. Jesse Hunsaker. Jacob Josephac. Anat Kesavan. Shreya Kumar. Gal Levine. Michelle Lee. Sarah McGuire. Nisha Malia. Shreya Murate. Ariana Clara Maestro. Lauren McSpadden. John Musoff. Shraddha Nayak. Anthony Okolo. Palak Oswal. Jesse Ping. Michelle Zhang. Edwin Portugal. Maitreyi Raman. Valmik Reje. Alfonso Rojas del Pozo. Rohan Shah. Joshua Shen. Chloe Shen. Macon Hill Shepherd. Craig Sturkin. Luke Sutterer. Aditya Tata. Emily Tivaba. Rodrigo Trota Iareji. Diana Sang. Joanna Tung. Nina Venton. Allison Way. Rondell White. Doris Guauhu Shu. Shuai Yang. Jenny Zhang. Daniel Zhang. Jason Wynn. Leonardo Acedo. Bradley Aka. Manuel Alvarez. Nauf Hamoud Al-Zayed. Kendall Aishe. Christy Baba. Tushar Bansal. Catherine Burgess. Kieran Birch Desai. Giancarlo Boldrini Villalobos. Luke Bouchard. Cameron Butler. Hunter Connell. Barry Cruvant. Fernando Dasso. Olivia Fielding Davis. Sarah Cohen Fernandez. Jordan Glasgow. Stetson Barchi. Isabel Goldstein. Noah Goldstein. Hattie Griffiths. Sabrina Hagan. Ken Howe. Jordan Elise Harris. Natalie Hernandez. Josh Jagoda. Jade James. Ellen Rajan Joseph. Yoon Ju Kim. Vishal Ladha. Yu-Ting Lee. Alejandra McDougall. Sharvani Mehta. Carolyn May. Ian Miller. Matthew Mister. Walter Namariam. Pietro Pedersoli. Michael Perlowski. Alexandra Price. Jennifer Pulido. Misha Putnam. Yashodhara Raj. Hariharan Ravi. Abigail Roberts. Jesse Rowell. Kevin Sadhu. Sanam Jalinas. Jing Wang. Samantha Kwu. Jose Saiz. Neha Saraf. Ariella Schechter. Varun Sriram. Sanjana Shukla. Joseph Stout. Sohyan Sarah Sun. Ananya Tandon Verma. Abav Terawi. William Van Ullen. Cody Wallach. Shinong Natasha Wong. Han Sun Wu. Hao Shu Shu. Lucas Diamantes. June Zong. Kelly Zong.
And Benjamin Zhu. Kina Bloomfield. Rachel League. Adwa Boateng. Gabriel Adebanjo. Kashika Agarwal. Ebony Aiken. Rachel Allen. Sydney Carmen Babiak. Kevin Julius Beeford. Rishab Batia. Jonah Binberg. Adam Clinton Bufford. Timilayo Butler. Regina Chan. James Chin. Shane Clune. Shivani Dixit. Jane Mary Fishkin. Andrew Flax. Ollie Collar. Alec Gran Silverstein. Jake Gobber. Radhika Gowal. Ning Guan. Akshita Gupta. Nalini Gupta. Jane Sidney Harrington. Ali Harris. Max Hartley. Arman Kabir Hassan. Stephanie Kim. Sabrina Knott. Engton Zenz. Alexander Kutovi. Filipos Letsas. Cicely Lee. Jacqueline Liang. Rashana Lingutla. Austin Little. Daniel Maldonado. Sydney Marsh. Jonathan Martin. Felix Matern. Kamakia Misra. Isabel Neva de Figueiredo. Olumin Ogunlana. Rushil Patel. Jake Pence. Catherine Kwan. Carly Ragosino. Brian Ramsey. Alvaro Rangel Ochoa. Monica Recan. Elizabeth Roberts. William Segwick. Benjamin Pearson. Mike Sinu. Grace Shi. Rebecca Yunji Shin. Per Eric Soller. Jessica Sun. Kathleen Teddy. Itai Zur. Lily Van Zapetian. Vinutna Viragandan. Joe Welsh. Jaron Williams. Tony Wu. David Yacobucci. Angela Zhu. Susie Zhu. Andrew Dongho Kim. Chloe Hale. Estefania Andrade. Julia Allback. Matt Benum. Adam Beaton. Uday Bartwaj. Hagen Black. Matthew Bogan. Akshay Botra. Brennan Burnett. Mayuko Butterfield. Christian Evans Lasala Caliboso. Dana Khan. Siddharth Chalani. Christopher Ryan Corbett. Alison Hubert. Felipe Quaturu. Maria Zorilla. Akshay Cyril. Sarel Diamond. Sebastian Preto Vasquez. Salim Alois. Vince Ioriobe. Henry Aosian Jiang. Zhu Kotari. Neil Pinto. Christian Giacomo. Alexandra Thaler. Maud Shifamba. Sumia Dubé. Frank Victor DiMartino. Ari Goldstein. Ilana Stern. Sabrina Fatih. Stephanie Hu. Wendy Yuan. Edward Victor Kaladian. Charles Manoff. Blake Christopher Niehaus. Julie Kim. Brian Kwong. Cheyenne Napier. Ray Wren. Hilary Song. Patrick O'Neill. Yafet Mina. Ben Parker. Adisu Petros. Justine Sun. Whitney Pan. Lipsa Panda. Tanvi Parikh. Siddhartha Puri. John Rishishi. Jia Liang Shen. Pranav Kumar. Vidushi Singhal. Eduardo Sandoval Valdez. Roland Spear. Justin Summers. Diksha Sundarka. Kathy Tsui. Mike Sliwinski. Brina Welsh. Chris Wing. Lillian Xu. Elsie Yo. Kehua Yin. Jane Xiaozu Zhang. Jenny Zhang. Emily Zhen. Friha Tahir. Radhika Banerjee. Marcela Abud Bertini de Rezende. Yodit Admasu. Ojima Agada. Naomi Allen. Brendan Allen. Emily Ashworth. Megana Bimarao. Stephen Bidwell. Ian Black. Sam Berg. Ailey Carlson. Kevin Coakley. Rachel Corbin. Kristen Dermenjan. David Emke. Tiger Xinye Fan. Cyrus Filfili. Michael Felton. Manuel Figueroa. Kathy Fu. Emma Gleestein. Drew Goldberg. Brianna Godestani. Kevin Gottfredson. Kevin Griffin. Michael Huckabee. Tyler Kidd. John Kakot. Alisa Krivokapik. Ashish Kulkarni. Mayank Kumar. Clarissa Kuo. Jillian Lee. Christina Lee. Zach Lim. Karen Lopez. Jackson Loff. Thomas Maddox. Jimmy McKee. Guy Pierre Moussalem. Grace Zhuangzuan Ni. David Overa Sanchez. Swahili Pandit. Amanda Paulino. Priyanka Patel. Malika Patkar. Mitchell Kwan. Corbin Kerr Ray. Madeline Ritasio. Alia Sani. Ezra Schwarzbaum. Simi Shah. Aventi Shroff. Najneen Sultana. David Thomas. Vivian Singh. Will Van Fossen. Phuong Ha Alex Vu. Monica Vu. Cindy Wang. Sophie Wang. Xin Zhang. JD Wei. Mike Theon Williams. Catherine Zhu.
Mine Loyan. Jamie Bromley. Shaboom Agarwal. Alexis Barber. Savannah Holness. Rebecca Morrison. Aditi Rajesh. Gabrielle Dubek. Rochelle Dubrovsky. James Erickson. Francesco Ambrosio. Ram Anathanarayanan. Ayati Arvind. Rahul Bami. Elizabeth Catherine Mearsbach. Carolyn Mearsbach. Chiso Osuji. Claudia Haimovici. Jordan Biggers. Bessie Bay. Nisar Grograni. Nico Goldberg. Benjamin Johnson. Elise Laird. Victor Lee. Lisa Liu. Dragos Castrovet. Caitlin French. Juhi Cha. Grace Unyong Chang. Ava Fang. Kelly Yaning Chen. Brandon Huang. Ozair Khan. Travis Chu. Austin Burke. Franco Maddalena. John Kane. Jesse Liu. Eric Allen Connor. Taylor Dayton. Srinitha Maldaneni. Nicholas Marfangelli. Juan Pablo Marquez Quetana. Lindsay Mattia. Guy Mead McCann III. Boyoung Namkang. Elizabeth Ostertag. Lakshmi Prakash. Mac Radin. Fardi Rahamli. Inar Ayman Shakur Jamal. Ryan Schiermeyer. Ryan Sobel. Sebastian Starts. Emily Stevens. Daniel Shackleton. Andreas Strulovic. Ria Takuchi. Gabriela Voldapides Caselli. Spencer Ward. Elliot Wilson. Caroline Wood. Helen Zhang. JC Zoe. David Patterson Cohn. Haider Abbas. Pooja Iyer. Bianca Bivona. Antonia Chapman. Luke Chen. Edison Jeffrey Chow. Shimi Cohen. Connor Crandall. Husit Divan. Michael Flory. Nathaniel Foote. Hannah Frankel. Jamil Gambari. Alberto Gil Ibanez. Jared Golestani. John Gomez Elcanto. Alexandra Griffin. David Gwynn. Amna Hamid. Miguel Handel Rodriguez. Reginald Hawley. Christina Hong. Lucy Huang. Divya Juneja. Jivanjot Kang. Samhita Karnati. Vadahari Kejriwal. Lindsay Kendall. Renju Kokatu. Namonga Nicole Kwendekwema. Helen Lon. David Lee. Yi Lee. Cindy Lloyd. Serbi Lohia. Gabrielle Lustig. Anna Payton Malizia. Faisal Abdullah Umbutu. Kathleen Ann McCarran. Mark Walker McMillan. Taylor Miller. Jessica Moe. Anjika Nandan. Jacob Michael Newman. Ayadodeji Oyamakande. Loria Peterson Redondo. Martha Polnicki. Alexandra Quinones Larache. Josh Racine. Ernesto Rosales. Jane Runn. Vinay Shukla. Gabriella Siegel. William Tuckfarber. Monica Tunez. Neha Shri Opadya. Jessica Vajeho. Vidya Venkatakrishnan. Justin Villanueva. Corey Wallace. Shuming Wang. Soo-Young Park. Yoonji Kim. Lisa Song. Daewee Kim. Yifan Wang. Valerie Yoshimura. Talia Yoshipe. Louis Dunaway. Caroline Adelson. Subra Agarwal. Wesley Astor. Susie Bay. Alaji Sanusi Ba. Zoe Olivia Barnswell. Vedant Bastra. Morgan Buckley. Kajol Rao Char. David Chen. Anson Chang. Cody Aaron Clements. Arati Kohli. Shanika Cooper. Shrishti Dahia. JJ Del Rosario. Mary Jean Ali El Sayed El Banya. Siptarshi Ghosh. Santiago Gonzalez. Brinda Gopala Krishnan. Zach Griff. Julien Gio. Adi Gupta. Ananshankar Japrakash. Billy Kasim. Akshita Kalra. Dridi Kamat. Tiffany Ka. Vanessa Ku. Rishika Kumar. Shriya Kumar. Shubham Kumar. Orisha Wami Tanya Olumade Kotun. Mary Landry. Jonathan Lee. Ignacia Lavia Crossley. Bakang Mabisi. Manali Mahajan. Madeline McCrimslick. Greg McLean. Ridima Mishra. William Misitano. Piali Mukherjee. Kelsey Murray. Janet Owukamuchi. Raymond Ortega. Andromaca Priastio. Elizabeth Pringle. Juliana Marie Ricari. Daniel Ribband. Jocelyn Salazar Garcia. Jared Shelton. Maolin Shen. Shrish Shinoy. Namisha Patel Shinde. Taranjit Singh. Tanvi Santhalia. Liam Stevens. Ben Torkin. Pranathi Tupakola. Paul Tupper. Akash Varshney. David Von Savage. Brendan Webb. Katie Yang. Angela Zhu.
Mimi Kirikoglu. Bailey Braher. Shravya Agarwal. Ankush Bansal. Nitisha Bansal. James Bird. Shaya Bhatt. Carl Brown. Katie Butler. Emily Shin. Ina Himangi Dabke. John Daniel. Jacob Deal. Nick DiStefano. Lucy Gottlieb Friedman. Jacques Lane. Idris Gatani. Sahaj Gupta. Andre Hillman. Krista Holland. Ivania Hong. Monica Thanous. Neha Jain. James Kalkisingi. Michael Aram Karamahardian. Jackson Bender Kellner. Anamika Kanal. Lauren Kobayashi. Hannah Krabs. Sarah Coxhausen. Adrian Lamb. William Lane. Aaron Letsky. Katie Lee. Xandra Lee Howard. Holden McKay. Sarah Camille Mido. Tushar Mittal. Srimuyi Mukhopadhyay. Brianna Neal. Ikemi Osi Ogbu. Chris Palacios. Arushi Parashar. Jason Prideaux. Jack Robinson. Medha Sharma. Delaney Sheets. Victor Skanderi. Thomas Starts. Arunab Singh. Nadir Tekarli. Natasha Urbani. Jason Togut. Nisa Kokas. Kuba Waligorski. Kate Weiss. Oy Lam Michelle Yan. Michael Yuan. Anna Zhang. Lilian Tianyu Zhang. Alice Zhu. Yidan Sun. Jin Zhu. Eduardo Zulueta. Ashima Goba. Francesca Agege. Sophie Deminil. Srinotra Abanti. Joseph Barbati. Rodolphe Bernard. Jeffrey Brewer. Bailey Carpenter. George Carrick. Paola Cueva Baez. Jeremy Dam. Emma Dunlap. Catherine Marie Flessel. Alexandria Ford. Frank Gao. Derek Gibbs. Mark Eric Guerra. Carolyn Haley. Benjamin Oshit. Jeffrey Hu. Xiran Yuan. Vivek Jaju. Nancy Jiang. Wanjiro Kamau. Kimaya Karnawat. Elaine Kim. Stephanie Lee. Alex Yongzheng Liu. Wangari Mongay. Gvansa Nikabadze. William McQuirk. Lindsay Grossman. Misona Wafor. Nidhi Manoj. Manasi Patwa. Ben Riddell. Jossie Rodriguez. Adam Rosen. Nirav Sani. Haran Samini. Haven Senjay. Akanksha Sanzani. Vyam Srivatstava. Yuki Megan Chang. Yimeng Li. Yoshi Yoshitake. Ella Zhu. Cameron Allen Wade. David Wokocha. Michelle Van Zyl. Alexandra Nicole Marguli. Malvika Ragarandan. Dr. Chip Chambers. Sam Yu. Kelsey Spencer. Johnny Todd. Louisa Ugatengwe. Emily Zhuang. Gamble Oots. Tara Smith. Crystal Shinyu Lee. YJ Tan. Elise Zapia. Jeannie Zhao. Joshua Zimmer. Garin Davis. Christopher Bush. Xenia Bobrick. Julia Baer. Chris Oyong. Michaela Asoma. Dominique Engione. Rached Arached. Esther Ajari. Ronak Agarwal. Lucas Adams. Michael Asuncia. Bridget Babcox. Estefania Diaz. Michelle Dor Icochea. Eduardo da Costa. Ivy Chen. Nikita Deshikan. Mark Kui. Joshua Douglas. Biola Durojeye. Shreya Dua. Peter DeSimone. Brendan Ishos. Atissa Farzami. Carl Fedorov. Madison Fox. Matthew Friday. James Gilbert. Ayushi Gorna. Alexandra Hekel. Nidhi Jagadisha. Buchan Richardson. Alicia Rodriguez. Yeme Joel Yamirnes. Subham Kedia. Scott Kelly. Nathan Kidambi. Melody Lin. Joe Liu. Lorenzo Lopez. Dana Lord. Dylan McGee. Ravi Malik. Mio Malouf. Naman Jain. Tanika Mera. Ameya Mittal. Mackenzie Lynn Nolan. Amara Obiago. Adebobola Owaseni. Suborna Panja. Karina Patel. Roy Peng. Woodson Banneker Powell. Kritika Bugalia. Nikhil Raman. Tania Reel. Shriya Saha Dalal. Raya Satara. Griffin Smillo. Monica Viavare. Camille Wyatt. Feifei Yu. And finally, the last but not the least, Kimberly Zhang. Congratulations to all of you, class of 2025.
For the first time, we say congratulations, Wharton alumni. In 1868, at the same time that entrepreneur and industrialist Joseph Wharton was rebuilding the American Nickel Works in Camden, New Jersey following a large fire, 13 young children, with whom each of you has something in common and a direct connection, were being raised in all of the opportunities, the chaos, and the uncertainty of the post-Civil War United States. Just 13 years later, those young men would become Wharton's first business students, and eventually, the first members of the world's most powerful alumni network. A network more than 100,000 strong, stretching across industries, generations, and more than 150 countries. The Wharton alumni community is here to champion you. to challenge you, and welcome you with open arms. It thrives specifically because graduates stay connected, come back, give back, and support one another. As much as any graduation is about saying goodbye, I'm also here today to remind you that it's as much about saying hello and welcome. As you find your place in the alumni community, Wharton will grow with you and because of you. This powerful network is not a closed loop, however. It is one that will lead to the development of new products, new wealth creation, new job creation, and answers to many of the most pressing questions facing us today. The world is counting on you, not just to drive innovation and to move markets, but also to look over the horizon, just as Joseph Wharton himself did, and to identify solutions for problems that are just too daunting for others to solve. But you don't have to do it alone. Come back to campus, give back when you can, find ways to stay involved, both formally and informally. We will be here for you and with you. Now, to officially signal that you have become a part of this powerful alumni community, please move your tassel from the right to the left side of your cap. You now carry the responsibility of a Wharton graduate to lead with clarity, to think boldly, and to contribute in ways that matter. You have what it takes to rise to the challenge and drive meaningful change. And wherever your path takes you next, one last reminder that you won't walk it alone. Your Wharton family will be here, cheering you on, opening doors, and celebrating all of the ways that you are making your mark on the world. Congratulations again, we are proud of you and so excited to see what comes next. Many of you in the class have already started strengthening your bond with Wharton by taking part in your class gift. Thank you for playing a vital role in shaping the school's future. A huge thank you to this year's Alumni Fellows, including co-chairs Jacqueline Keene and Natu McCarthy, who worked tirelessly to ensure the success of the class gift campaign. Your class raised more than $18,700 for Wharton. What a powerful example of what you can achieve together. Congratulations and thank you. At this time, I invite Jacqueline and Natu to present the class gift to Dean James. One more piece of formal business. I am now delighted to share with you an important Wharton tradition. Each year, a leader within the Wharton alumni community serves as a marshal and passes the alumni flag to a member of the graduating class. We are thrilled that our keynote speaker, Nikolai Tangen, will also be this year's alumni marshal. We are proud to count Nikolai as an alumnus of Wharton's undergraduate program. As you heard from Dean James, he is an incredible leader in global investment management, an advocate for education, the arts, and the environment, and a lasting friend to Wharton. He is also a proud Penn parent. We thank Nikolai for the profound ways he has supported international students across Wharton and Penn. He has taken entrepreneurial innovation to new heights at Tangen Hall. He has strengthened the school through his past Board of Advisors service and is a fitting recipient of Wharton's esteemed Distinguished Service Award. As Nikolai passes the alumni flag to your classmate, Tyler Jackson, Join me in celebrating the connection you have made between the Wharton alumni community and your class.
Thank you, Bill, Nikolai, and Tyler. And thank you to all of our 100,000 plus alumni around the globe who make Wharton's community the largest, most impactful, and most engaging business school alumni community in the world. You are now not only a part of Wharton's alumni community, but you are also a part of the Penn alumni community, where you will continue to grow and nurture the personal, intellectual, and professional relationships you've made during your time at Penn. And I look forward to seeing you all at the University of Pennsylvania commencement ceremony on Monday. As we close today's ceremony, it remains my hope that each and every graduate understands how much this community is proud of and excited for you. May your Wharton experience serve you well in your future endeavors, and may you always trust in the power of Wharton and yourselves. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Graduates, grab those caps. Parents, friends, family, get the cameras ready. Congratulations, graduates!